It's 9 to 9. For many years, the Retailers Association, QWRTSA, has been there for small businesses. Some of their major roles have been fighting against 7-day trading and warning the Reserve Bank of the effects of rate hikes on small business. But on the weekend, the Retailers Association underwent a name change to become the United Retail Federation. So will there be any other changes to the way that they operate? Scott Driscoll is the National Executive Director and joins me. Good morning.
Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Good. What was the reason for the name change?
Aaron, over the last 12 months in particular, we've really looked at where we've been and where we're heading, and I think that sort of has led us to the point where realising that we really need to broaden our wings and certainly look at the broader retail sector and supply chain, farmers, producers, transport operators and staff. I think what it is a reflection of a more modern focus on being relevant moving forward to the retail sector as a whole.
There was some confusion sometimes with the National Retailers Association. Was that also part of the name change?
Look, I wouldn't say that we've made any decisions based on the inactions or otherwise of other organisations, but certainly I think we sit above and beyond what we've seen most others that have had a go at representing the sector. And look, if this at the same time clarifies where we're heading, what we're about, and the fact that we're going to be leading the pack, well, so be it. That's a good thing as well.
So how will your role change?
Look, I think in the discussions that I've already begun to have with people such as the President of the Australian Furniture Manufacturers Association and talking to people over the weekend within the agricultural sector as well, what we're really going to now be looking towards is being a voice that represents our members. Obviously, that's our core job, to represent the retailers around the country, but certainly to be much more engaged, much more focused and much more aware of our entire supply chain. And I think it's probably a little bit bleedingly obvious now, looking back, that many associations, and I'll sort of put my hand up and say probably ours as well, in our history, has not been engaged enough with protecting our supply chains. We hear so many stories about Australian farmers getting done out of contracts, being looked over by particularly the big end of town to overseas cheaper, lesser imports. I think it's really in our whole nation's best interest, particularly the retail sector being the biggest employment sector in the country, that we put a stop to that we look at this holistically.
Is this a reflection then on just how tough things are getting for the small man?
Look, I think it's a bit of a fight-back scenario, to be honest with you. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm really quite optimistic that in engaging more with farming associations, manufacturing groups, and also actually developing chapters under our own banner that will have representation and giving voice to those particular segments of our supply chain, I think we can really see a resurgence in this. And I think it's exciting for our members. And from the feedback that we're getting so far, I think it will really prove to growing our member base and just showing that we are at the forefront of relevance in this critical sector.
So, Scott, how will someone on the ground, how will someone in central Queensland, a business owner, how will they notice the changes in the way you operate?
I think what they're going to see is a lot more commentary around how we operate as a retail segment within that supply chain. Certainly, I would say that the agriculture sector, the transport operators in the Rockhampton region certainly would be seeing us engaging more in the issues that are relevant to them as well. And I'm talking here now where we've got such a diversified and decentralised continent where we've actually got to send goods and stock right around the place. So, I mean, I think where in the past perhaps transport groups have felt that they're fighting these battles on their own, trying to push down the price of transport, trying to make government more aware of the things that are impacting them, I think they'll probably find that we're standing shoulder to shoulder with them a lot more now. And I think that's critical because we're not just talking about stuff on shelves in shops. To get it there, it's going from the farm gate to a truck. It's then all being manufactured and onto a truck. It's then getting, through a whole lot of stages within that supply chain. And I think the other thing I should mention too is we want to work a lot more closely with our staff. And I think down the track what we're going to see is some pretty exciting developments there as well. So that's one to stay tuned for. I probably want to focus more on the supply chain people at the moment and work more closely with them. But I think we're building to something pretty exciting.
It's 4 to 9. We're speaking with Scott Driscoll, the National Executive Director of the recently renamed United Retail Federation. Scott, how are businesses coping on the back of the latest interest rate rise and the fact that there's probably more on the way?
Look, it's very tough, and I think the lack of certainty there is something that we will just have to continue to strongly advocate to the Reserve Bank. I talk with them on a monthly basis. They really need to start to understand, and so do government with their policies and their spending, and I think the pressures that they've been putting over the last 18 months on interest rates. I think we really need to sort of take a very bipartisan approach to this now and say, well, look, that those stimulatory pressures that are going on to interest rates, we need to pull back on that. You know, that was something that, depending on which side of politics, I guess, 18 months ago you either agreed or disagreed with. I think now the egos of some within the government need to be put to the side. We need to say, look, we are, starting to struggle out of the downturn, but this stimulus spending, this borrowing that's going on from the federal government to the extent that it is not working so far as mum and dad with the mortgage is concerned, because that's what's putting the real pressure on interest rates.
I'm wondering, with this new strike power as the United Retail Federation, does that give you more say when it comes to having those chats with the Reserve Bank?
I think it will. They're pretty practical people, the people I talk to at the Reserve. They're sort of reflecting on the fact that we do have quite a diverse range of influence on us, and certainly on influence on the sector. So I think they recognise also that we're at the grassroots, we're at the coalface, and what we do say and what we pass on to them in those private meetings is pretty practical stuff, and I think that's reflected in the fact that myself and my predecessors have actually had these discussions for a number of years with the Reserve on a monthly basis, and I think when we update them on this change and on certainly the broader reach that we've now got, I'm sure that will be taken into account accordingly.
And the other issue, of course, I mentioned in my introduction, 7-day trading. It was an issue that the association was passionate about. What are you hearing from small businesses in Rockhampton since the introduction of Sunday trading here?
Look, I don't really think much has changed, to be honest with you, Aaron. I think most people who are at the coalface there as well are recognising the fact that there is only so much in that pot to go around. There is only so much that you can actually spend in the retail sector in any given geographic area, and what we're seeing with an expansion of ours is only to the benefit of the major retail chains, which send their profits back down into the southern states. It's only in the interest of them. It is not designed whatsoever to put more money back into the Rockhampton community or back into local businesses that reinvest in the Rockhampton community. So, look, I think what's done is done, but the real message to Rockhampton people is support your local independent retailers and certainly diversify your spending. That's the way to keep prices down. That's the way to put pressure on the majors.
Scott, great to talk to you this morning, and look forward to talking to you in the future as part of the United Retail Federation.
Fantastic, Aaron. Thanks.
Thank you. Scott Driscoll, the National Executive Director of the recently renamed United Retail Federation, formerly the Retailers Association, or QRSA, as you may know them as. Coming up to news time at 9 o'clock.